There's a whole lot of rah-rah out here in these YouTube streets about Dr. Umar Johnson, his tendencies, his behaviors, and his whereabouts. So I have a question for you. Is Dr. Umar Johnson a black messiah or a megalomaniac? The black community wants to know. Okay, so here's the question. Who is Umar Johnson? Umar Johnson was born Jermaine Shoemake, and he is, or at some point, was a school psychologist. He's a self-proclaimed black parent advocate, black activist, and a relative of the late and great Dr. Frederick Douglass. If you don't know Umar by any of those labels, you might know him as Prince Ifatunde, or Dr. Papa, the most requested black scholar, King Kong consciousness, the Prince of Pan-Africanism, the notorious RBG, or the founder of the unapologetically African movement, among some other self-aggrandizing titles. I first began following Umar Johnson on YouTube at the request of my brother, who had become a fan of Umar's parent advocate rhetoric. So we have a baby in our family with special needs. So my brother was listening intently to Umar's instructions on how to advocate for his son. Umar had published the first edition of his book, or the only edition of his book, The Psycho-Academic Holocaust, the Special Education and ADHD Wars Against Black Boys. And YouTube was one of the platforms he used to promote the book and to drum up interest for speaking engagements, etc. Now, I have to say that as an educator, I was impressed. I was impressed by how much he seemed to know about the darkness of the special education system. And he seemed to have an authentic commitment to helping unsuspecting black parents to navigate that system, and equipping them with the necessary terminology, which is extremely important, and tools that they would need to advocate for their children successfully. I'm sure what I liked most about Umar was that he would take calls during his lives, and he'd give parents an opportunity to question him about specific problems they were having, with the special education system. He'd answer their questions and then give his personal phone number for parents to come call, him directly for detailed help. Now, I'm sure eventually they will pay a fee, if a case begged too much detail or attention, but still, he was giving them an initial consultation for free of charge. How do I know that? Because my brother spoke with him directly. He called that number and Umar answered the number, and he did give him some direction for dealing with his child that he did not have before. I thought that was commendable. Once I began to follow Umar on YouTube, I began to recognize him from somewhere. I'm looking at it. I thought, I know this guy from somewhere. And then it hit me. He was one of them brothers from the Hidden Colors video series. Because I watched that mug like I was watching Good Times reruns over and over and over as much as I could. I had it on video, so it was tripping a little bit. But I enjoyed that video, and I realized that was him. So for me, that gave him more credibility, right? So soon I found out that he was fundraising to build an all-boys black school, and that he was traveling the country. He was going to and fro looking for a building that he could purchase for, housing the school. It would be a boarding school, he said. The curriculum would be African-centered, and it would include such subjects as agriculture, spiritual science, political science, the science of being a man was one of them. So he spoke of a rites of passage ceremony for the pupils. It was very exciting to hear, about this heaven on earth, as he called it. Again, I'm a teacher myself, so this was very exciting to me. I wished I had a son young enough to attend the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, better known as FDMG. So he talked a lot about where he desired to open the schools, but nothing became tangible until about 2018, when Umar announced that he purchased a whole campus in Wilmington, Delaware, and that the campus would be the home of the FDMG Academy. And for me, that's when things started to look a little shifty. So because I began to follow, Umar on YouTube, YouTube's algorithm, they started coming up on my line, different Umar type videos. During one event, I remember very clearly that Umar was really, really angry at this event because he hadn't received as many donations as he thought that he should receive from the Black community. He started talking about the Trayvon Martin case and how the white community raised $150,000 to set Zimmerman free. That was a really interesting video. I remember that it shocked me, right? Because he started hurling names, calling Black folks all kind of stuff, trifling, lazy. He said that he hadn't, that he better get some more donations, he said, because apparently the donations weren't big enough. He didn't like the fact that they weren't giving as many donations. So he talked about folks sending, people sending one donation. You think it's because you sent one donation, you finished? You ain't finished, he said. You ain't off the hook. You better send me more donations and more and some more and some more. I'm listening to the video like, who is he talking to? I mean, just... And the audience, of course, is sitting there. They're not saying very much. They get a little quiet because it's almost like getting beat. Verbally, it was getting verbally beat by somebody. It started reminding me, honestly, of what I remember as a child in the Pentecostal church. That's another conversation. We have that later. But that's what it reminded me of, and I thought, this is really interesting. He fussed and he argued, and at one point. You can help us build this platform. Simply take a moment to like, subscribe, and then share. This is really what made me kind of think, whoa. He talked about the parents being so trifling that he said that the school would be a boarding school. And he said, a lot of stuff. I can't remember exactly, how he put it, but he talked about there were very, very negative, terms that he called the parents. And he said that they would need to be at the school with him because I ain't gonna send them home to you. He said, I send them home to you. That's why they messed up right now. And he talked about them coming to the school, living at the school with him, and that the parents would only have access on the weekends because they were the problem that the kids were messed up to begin with. When I heard that, I thought, something has gone askew. So other Umar related content, began to surface on my feed. I started getting real concerned because it became apparent to me that Umar had been raising funds for this school for a lot longer than I knew. Because apparently he'd been raising money for a boys' school during or around as early as 2013, but just hadn't gotten around to purchasing the building, which he calls FDMG, till 2018. And public records indicated that he purchased the whole campus very inexpensively. The condition of the building is a good indication as to why he purchased the building for so low. So quite naturally, people began to question Umar about the money that he donated that they donated for the school. And at the time of the making of this video, the school has yet to be. It's still, a heap of abandoned buildings, basically. So, the buildings have been purchased, but they're not schools. They're nowhere near up to code. And according to him, according to Umar, he'll need at least another $1 million to renovate the buildings. So some say it'll take as much as $3 million to do the same thing. So in any video I view, whether Umar is asked directly or indirectly about the whereabouts of the money that he's collected for the sake of this building and these boys, he is very combative, very dismissive, sometimes abusive, and definitely indignant about being questioned about where this money has gone. So the conversation is, okay, you purchased the building, but you have been collecting money for so very long that by now You should have anything you need to renovate the building. But Umar is not talking about that money, and he doesn't want anybody else to talk about it, or he doesn't seem to want anyone else to talk about it. So in the other videos, I witnessed Umar requesting money in advance of several projects. Right, one was a documentary that was supposed to come out. There's another YouTuber named Lennon Honor who has some really good information, so you might want to check him out. But what's really interesting is that Umar had been talking about this documentary for years, and Lennon Honor ended up making a shockumentary. But the shockumentary was about Umar and his behaviors, right? He also talked about a Black Parent Advocate Handbook, I think it was. And as of the making of this video, that book is now released. But it's been in the making for a very long time. And it's just been released like in the past weekend, I think last weekend. But he's collected a lot of money for pre-orders for that book for a very, very long time. And it almost looks like, I can't say this for sure, but it almost looks like the reason that he went ahead and pressed that book is because there are YouTubers like Lennon Honor, anti-afro Svengalis, and a few others have been really exposing a lot of things that just don't seem right, that just don't add up. There was also going to be a conscious music CD that he talked about for a very long time. He's raising money for that. That hasn't surfaced. The shockumentary hasn't surfaced. And of course, for, it looks like as early as 2013, or maybe even a little earlier, he's been raising money for this school. And just got the school recently, of course. And let me take that back. He's been raising money for a school and only has a building, a campus of buildings that are in a horrible condition. So there were many videos and receipts that brought to light questionable incidents. Like there was one about a stripper. Apparently, he has claimed that he has a particular type, and of course that type is natural, that the woman has to be completely natural. But there was an incident where he was involved with a blonde-haired stripper with receipts that are all over the internet. There's been question about his erratic behaviors, erratic fiend-like behaviors. In many videos, this has been as of late, maybe in the past year and a half or so, he's become very unkept sometimes. His behaviors are very erratic. In many of them, he looks very disheveled. In many, he's sniffling and blinking, and, on one that I saw, he's like sitting on the rock that he had painted or was painted for him at FDMG. Or maybe he was in a cemetery at this one. Anyway, there's questions about him smoking. And he's in a cemetery actually in this one, saying, he's smoking, but clearly he's answering some questions that have been around on the internet, because he wants to say that while I'm smoking is a Black and Mild, but it wasn't that brand, it was some other brand, but I'm not smoking anything else. That's basically what he didn't say it, but that's what I know, that he was answering some other videos. Constant begging, in some videos. I mean, constant, like he never lets up from begging for money, never lets up, always begging for money. You can help us build this platform. Simply take a moment to like, subscribe, and then share. So of course that's questionable. I've seen full on rants and tirades, using language that you would never expect a professional to use ever, and if so, you would expect it to be in the privacy of your own home. But he is going off on some YouTuber named Seti. And during one video, he is going ham on Tariq Nasheed, who is one of the other men from the conscious video from Hidden Colors. I'm thinking, my God, didn't you all work together? I believe, if I can remember correctly, Tariq Nasheed was the creator of the video, who I understand, according to a video where I heard Umar speaking, that Tariq Nasheed is the gentleman that hired him for the video, but in one particular video, he is giving it to him with a hot poker. You hear me? I mean, he is letting him have it, in every vulgar thing you can imagine came out of his mouth in reference to it, to Tariq Nasheed. Going off on the guy. When I say going off, I'm talking about using some language that I won't even use. And I will, sometimes there's nothing like a good F-bomb. You can need to set one off in order to set it off. But some of the stuff that Umar was saying, I won't even say it in the privacy of my own. I won't say it. I mean, I'm telling you, it's horrible. But just going off on him, and then there's some videos of him straight making threats on some YouTubers that have brought to question and brought to light some of his behaviors and some of his dealings. I mean, bodily threats, and calling on to pull up team, and just stuff that really made me stand back and say, oh, wait a minute. At one time, I honestly felt like Umar was probably the next Malcolm X. There's some videos of him calling for the murder of 10% of black boys, and I know that sounds really outlandish, but I did see that video where he's saying that, we won't be able to save all of them, that he can't psychologize, I think is a term he used, all of these black boys on the corners, on the streets, whatever. Some of them, he said, you got to put them to sleep. Put them to sleep because you wouldn't be able to reform them, or he wouldn't be able to reform them. So there's some videos about his living conditions where there's one where he makes a mistake and turns the camera over, and you actually see his living conditions, which are, just not what you would expect at all. I mean, total chaos when the video flipped by mistake. So that's there. And then, there's some questions about whether or not he's homeless, because at some point, at some point he's walking around. One YouTuber called him Dora the Explorer, because he's walking around Philly with a backpack as if he has nowhere to go. He did that for a while. I'm not sure if he's still doing it as of today, but he was doing it. He's sitting in random cars making videos. One YouTuber said that they had proof that he was actually in a, what do you call it? A junkyard, using cars, spending a lot of time in cemeteries, I mean, literally lots of time in cemeteries, calling on the ancestors, and, stuff that's just very, very interesting, very interesting. It's almost been like a episode of Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Dr. Umar Johnson? Where in the world is Dr. Umar Johnson? Okay, I'm being a little silly, but it's almost like that. They wonder where he is. You can't. Sometimes you don't know. He shows up in spots you don't expect, and then some places you expect to see him, he isn't. Like for instance, for the book signing, he was supposed to be some places that he put on a list to be, in Chicago somewhere, and restaurants and other places. But the point is, people that have been following him YouTubers and influencers that have been following him and who see a need to to expose his behaviors, have been calling ahead to different places to get some of those engagements shut down, because they don't believe that he is legitimate. He's authentic. And just recently, this past week or a week or two ago, it was kind of funny to me that he was supposed to be scheduled to do his book signing in Chicago at a place called Yassa. It's an African restaurant. And so some YouTubers and influencers called ahead to see if he was going to be there, because they had organized to shut a lot of his engagements down because of the questions, the questions they have about him. Anyway, it worked in a lot of places, but this Yasta restaurant act like they didn't know what they were talking about when they called and said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Or they could never get a definitive answer, but it looked like they had shut the the engagement down. And then Umar shows up at Yassa restaurant, but they don't find out until I think the day after, because stuff wasn't posted until the day after that they actually had the book signing at Yassa restaurant. So it was almost like, I started laughing. I said, it's like an episode of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? It's Where in the World is Umar Johnson? Then he surfaces a day or two later on a website of a very popular YouTube channel called Black Sit. And this is a channel that was created to help repatriate African Americans or Africans of the diaspora back into Africa if that's where they want to be. So it's led by a sister named Juliet. I follow that channel too. If you're interested in thinking and you're thinking at all about going to Africa to develop a relationship with Africa or to move to Africa, you better check out that channel. It's called Black Sit. It's like BLAXIT. But anyway, Umar shows up, I don't know, a day or two after or before the event at Yassa in a picture with Juliet from Black Sit channel in Gambia. Now, whether that was posted that day or before, I don't know. But I do know that she posted a picture of her and Umar together, saying that she's received some really good publicity from Umar Johnson from America. And it caused a storm from people who, of course, have been following Umar and have questions about him now, or have receipts about what they believe is his deceitful behavior and deceitful criminal activity. You can help us build this platform. Simply take a moment to like, subscribe, and then share. So it's been really interesting how much stuff has been surfacing about Umar Johnson. There's consistent and public record of him being in child support arrearage on a regular basis, like regularly, so that's an issue. And then, I'm just going to stop right there because I could go on about things that I've seen since I began to follow him. But now there are also videos of folk who love Umar Johnson, who praise Umar Johnson. So I saw videos of people who were taking classes with him. For instance, I can't remember the name of the class, but he had a name for the class because he talked about it. But there were people that had taken class with him and they were having kind of like a celebration after the class was done. I remember him saying that the year had been a strenuous year for him, but that he appreciated their persistence with the class and their, activity in the class. But these people clearly were they praised Umar for his knowledge and his commitment to teaching them. I'd also seen at least two interviews where he was interviewed on the Breakfast Club, and not as the donkey of the day. He was clearly respected on the Breakfast Club, and I think Charlemagne say that the Umar Johnson interviews are always the most viewed videos on their site. So it's not like people don't want to hear what he's saying or he doesn't have a contribution. I saw one woman who testified of how committed she felt like he was. She said that she was looking forward to the day when she could tell the story of how Umar made a difference in her household. So there is a contribution. I witnessed a woman calling into one of his lives and asking how she could be one of the two queens that he announced that he would take, because he says he makes it very public there are going to be two queens, and sometimes he'll mention that those two queens will be separated, like his academy is in two pieces. One is for, I think, the younger boys, and one is for the older boys in terms of the building on campus, I think is what he says. And that one woman will be the queen of this school, and the other woman will be this queen of this school. I have witnessed at several occasions where women are talking about, how can I be, can I be next one of the queens and so on and so. So people, believe in what Umar is doing. They believe in what he's done. And as I said to you before, I know for a fact that he took my brother's call. I know that, and gave him some direction. So we're just one of many. I've seen him being celebrated at different venues, right, and by different organizations. So you see, the cards are stacked on both sides. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a Messiah is a leader or savior of a particular group or cause. A megalomaniac is a person inflicted with megalomania, and megalomania is an obsession with the exercise of power, especially in the domination of others. Delusion about one's own power or importance, typically as a symptom of manic or paranoid disorder. So is Umar Johnson truly a Black Messiah, as all of his presentations and his followers suggest that he is? Is Umar truly committed to the empowerment and the movement and the rise of the Black community? Or is Umar Johnson really a charlatan, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a snake oil salesman in a dashiki? That is the question that I believe the Black community is truly asking in all the current RaRa that's taking place about Umar Johnson out here in these YouTube streets. I honestly believe that the Black community needs a definitive answer to this question. Because if we find that Umar Johnson is truly a Black Messiah and his works give proof of that, then we need to rally behind that brother and give him our collective support and resources. But if it is determined that he is not a Messiah, but a megalomaniac instead, then we need to drag him to the town square and make it known to the whole community worldwide and excommunicate his ass. Arrest him or commit him, period. So here's the question. Is Umar a Messiah, or is Umar a megalomaniac? And what is your proof? If you believe that Umar is a Messiah, let us know that in the comments. And then tell us why you think so. Give us an example. It's easy to say something and you don't have to back it up, right? But if you believe that he is a Messiah, then tell us that in the comments and give us an example of why you think that he is a Messiah. And if you believe that Umar is a megalomaniac, then let us know that in the comments. But also, you got to tell us why you think so. Don't just say, yeah, he's crazy, he's a megalomaniac. He's a megalomaniac. Why? Why you say so? Let us know. It's been a blessing and a blast. I cannot wait to hear your answers.